So Manchester City have beaten Chelsea 1-0 in the FA Cup final and are walking away with the little domestic double, which is the FA Cup and the Carling Cup or the League Cup. I still call it Carling Cup. I don't know if that's showing my age. But I think my takeaway from that game was going to be, is Pep finally done though? Because I think a lot of the discourse before this final for both teams was the managerial situation going into next season. And I thought if Pep obviously wins the FA Cup final, doesn't quite get there in the end in the Premier League, is he definitely going to leave? Everything in terms of around the vibe of Pep Guardiola, the vibe of the likes of Bernardo Silva that leave, and it does feel like a little bit of a last hurrah, and Pep is going to make way. Because obviously as United fans, you are watching the rivals, you are looking at them quite closely, and you're trying to gauge the direction of travel, how settled they are, because United are poised for me to make a little bit of a leap, but we have to have a lot of things go our way. And I think Pep Guardiola leaving City could be one of those things that opens up the door to be challengers, because they will obviously have to go through a little bit of a transition, almost like a reinvention of themselves. And I think that's where I'm hoping that we can capitalise. But when the game started, obviously Marmoush started the game, and I thought, as Pep Guardiola, Galaxy brained it again. Has he overthought it? Obviously, Rodri's first start in, I think, over a month with groin injuries, put him straight back into the fold. And City had a really good first 20 minutes or so. But I think the middle phase of the game, like the mini, like 45 minutes from the 20th until like the last 20 or so, I thought Chelsea were the better side, and they just don't have the requisite quality up front to punish them. Obviously, I didn't really have a dog in a fight. I was slightly hoping that Chelsea could get a victory, because I think it's always fun to laugh at our rivals lose. Chelsea, I would still consider one of our rivals, but not quite the same way of a Liverpool, City or an Arsenal, of course. But it weren't meant to be. And Callum McFarlane does seem to have a little bit of... He seems to get up for the Pep Guardiola fight, because I think there was nothing in that game, and I think he was unlucky, and I think Chelsea are unlucky to leave with a loss, because I thought they looked physically better than Chelsea, than Man City. I thought they looked technically better in a lot of senses, which surprised me. And I thought there were a lot of City players today that didn't really turn up, but in the end, they've got the win, they've got the trophy, and Chelsea have got to lick their wounds. And it doesn't look like they might even get European football next season. And I think one game a week Chelsea, from what I've seen against City and against Liverpool, I think it could be a little bit of a worry and a concern. Newcastle won't have Champions League football next season. They might not have Europe in at all. Chelsea are not going to have Europe, maybe. They are floundering a little bit with only a couple of games to go. And if you're United, you're looking at it thinking, Newcastle and Chelsea have had a little bit of a fall off when having to balance numerous competitions in Europe. You quite often see this happen. We are going to flip with them. So we're going to be the ones that have to balance 4 competitions, balance Europe and the league, whilst they don't have to. So this is where, if United aren't careful, if there isn't an evolution from Michael Carrick, if there isn't really strong recruitment in the summer where we're pretty much flawless, we could plummet next season in the league, and we could finish behind Newcastle and Chelsea, who have just the Premier League football to focus on. This is why this summer is so important, because I want to get to a stage where it's not one or the other, where we are able to compete admirably in the Champions League, but also compete and finish comfortably at least top 4 in the Premier League. But for me, it depends on what Chelsea do. And this goes on to my next point. They've got Xabi Alonso potentially walking through the door. It does seem as though that has accelerated a little bit. Romano's reported it a couple of times this morning, and it seems like he's leading the race to be Chelsea manager next season. Someone that had an incredibly fruitful tenure at Bayern Leverkusen, getting himself the Real Madrid job. I don't think it would be fair to really judge Xabi Alonso much on his Real Madrid tenure, They weren't exactly awful. They did okay. But as you've seen, it's an absolute circus at Real Madrid, where it's the egos and the players rule all. There's not really much balance in the team. Just a bunch of luxury players and superstars that don't want talking to and don't want telling to and don't want coaching. And he got sacked or he left mutually, whatever you want to call it. But it seems as though that wasn't really an environment that's conducive to really judging Xabi Alonso as a manager. And for me, I think if he does replicate the promise he did show at Leverkusen at Chelsea, and they have one game a week, and Chelsea will pull out their wallet, they will pull out the cash in the summer. I think they're a team to keep an eye on with one game a week next season, because I don't think the squad is as bad as people make out. I think they've had a few injuries. I think the managers they've had have been quite poor. I think it's just a couple of areas, if they improve, I think they're a really strong team. I just think they've had a lot to deal with all year. I think they've been a little bit of a mess. Clear Lake have no idea what they're doing, really. And I think the gap in quality between us and Chelsea, I don't think there really is any. So, and Chelsea are able to go into the transfer window, and I don't know how they're able to do it, but they'll go and buy 5, 6, 7 players. We just need to make sure we out-recruit them. As for Manchester City, they spent how much money in January, and it seems to have worked out for them. Obviously, Gehi did kind of blow the league for them with his Everton performance, but Semenyo today, fair play to him, gets the win or gets the goal, and Pep Guardiola reaping the benefits of being able to go out and buy a £60 million attacker within the Premier League in January when your season isn't going the way you want it to. Must be nice. But it was a really clever flick and a little bit of technical quality that you don't often attribute to Semenyo. But even though some of his performances and his actual play don't really wow a lot of the City fans, especially when they're used to such technical players, I think he's been a success. He's at least scored a winning goal for them that's got him the trophy. And Erling Haaland again gets an assist, but he doesn't quite get his Wembley goal. So more and more question marks about big game Haaland, which will be quite harsh. Obviously, he did get an assist, and I think Pep Guardiola almost messed up. He's one of those managers that can galaxy brain it a little bit, can overthink things, can make decisions in lineups that does affect the team, and I thought he did with starting Marmoush, and that's why he hooked him at half-time, put Cherki on. He still didn't make much difference for the first 15-20, but then after that, I thought Cherki's influence started to grow. They start getting that associative play that weren't there with Marmoush. I think Cherki obviously grew into the game, and they weathered the storm, and Chelsea didn't punish them when they had the opportunity to. I don't know whether that was down to the fact they didn't have enough attackers on the pitch, or the attackers' quality wasn't quite there. I thought João Pedro had quite a poor game. Who's someone that has been heavily linked to Barcelona. I think Deco's flown in to kind of watch him, and I don't know whether he crumbled under the aura of Deco scouting him, because Chelsea fans might like the fact, in a sense, that they might see it as a silver lining that Pedro performed the way he did, because it might mean that Barcelona might soften their interest a little bit. But yeah, I'm sick of watching finals of teams that we're rivals with and we're not involved. But honestly, for a team that has been quoted as scary for the past 3 or 4 months, they've had a few hiccups and a few blips. I thought Chelsea have shown themselves to be trending in the right direction the past couple weeks. And my takeaway as a United fan is thinking if they actually hire a decent manager, which might be Xabi Alonso, they get their recruitment right in the summer, I think us as United fans might have to have a little bit of a look-see and a worry about if we're able to finish ahead of him in the league, because it does matter. So yes, but anyway, is Pep done now? Is that it? Will we finally see the back of him? He's got his FA Cup, he's got his League Cup, he's got his silverware, and I'm sick of the sight of him. So, is that the end? That's the question for me. But anyway, remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit the hype button, and I will see you next time.